The endocrine system is made up of endocrine glands that secrete hormones, and these hormones are carried to all parts of the body. Hormone secretion is controlled by feedback systems, such as the negative feedback, which is present mainly in processes in the blood, positive feedback, which is involved in regulating labor, childbirth, and lactation, and finally the antagonistic hormone, which controls conditions in the body. There are different glands along the body, and each one produces different hormones and they have different functions. The first one is the hypothalamus, which produces hypothalamic releasing hormones and hypothalamic inhibiting hormones. Function as an integrating center that help maintaining homeostasis, and is controlled by the negative feedback. The pituitary gland produces ADH, TSH, ACTH, gonadotropic hormones, and oxytocin. It maintains cortisol balance, stimulates gonads to produce sex hormones, and the thyroid to produce thyroid hormones, and it is controlled by a positive feedback. The thyroid gland produces T3, T4, and calcitonin, and they stimulate more cells to metabolize more glucose and utilize more energy, and it is controlled by an antagonistic hormone. Parathyroid gland secretes parathyroid hormone, and it promotes the activity of the classes and the release of calcium to form bonds, and it is controlled by an antagonist hormone. Adrenal glands produce epinephrine and norepinephrine, which cause body changes when someone reacts to an emergency, and it is controlled by a negative feedback. The pancreas produces insulin and glucagon, and when there is a lower blood glucose, they synthesize proteins, and it is controlled by an antagonistic hormone. The gonads produce testosterone in male and maintain sex characteristics, and it is
During
controlled
ejaculation, sperm leaves the penis in a fluid called semen. The seminal vesicles, the prostate gland, and the bulbourethral glands add secretions to semen. The seminal vesicles lie at the base of the bladder, and each has a duct that joins with a vas deferens. The prostate gland is a single, donut-shaped gland that surrounds the upper part of the urethra, just below the urinary bladder. Bulbourethral glands are pea-sized organs that lie below the prostate on either side of the urethra.
Now the female reproductive system. First, I'm going to identify the organs and describe the function of each organ. Here you can see a photo labeling each organ of the reproductive system. So I'm going to start. First, we have the uterine or fallopian tube. In another image, here you can see how this tube goes to the uterus. This tube extends from the uterus to the ovaries, and its function is to guide the egg to the uterus. Now the ovary. Here you can see it in the other image. The ovary produces the oocytes or eggs in a process called oogenesis, and the female sex hormones estrogen and progesterone. We will see these sex hormones later in the ovarian cycle, and the uterine cycle. Now, the fundus of the uterus, well, we will see it as the whole uterus. The uterus is a muscular organ about the size and shape of an inverted pear, and this is where the embryo is embedded when it reaches the uterus, in a process called implantation. Now the cervix. Here we can see it. The cervix is the part that connects the uterus with the vagina. Here we can see the wall that connects the vagina with the uterus. Now the vagina, here we have it. The vagina is a long muscular tube that receives the penis during the sexual intercourse and serves as both the birth canal and the exit for monthly menstrual flow. As I mentioned before, the monthly menstrual flow will be described in the uterine cycle. Let's continue with the organs. Now we will pass to the external female genitals. We will use this image to identify them. First we have the labia majora. The labia majora are two large hair-covered skin folds. Here we can see it. Here we can see the hair, the pubic hair. Now the labia minora, that are two small folds lying just inside the labia majora, and they extend from the opening of the vagina to circle the gland clitoris, forming the foreskin. Here we can see a perfect example of how it circles the clitoris and how they are inside the labia majora. To finish these organs, we have the clitoris. The clitoris contains erectile tissue that becomes filled with blood during sexual stimulation. It is a small organ, but we can see its structure. Now, the fertilization is the action of process of the function of the male and female gametes. In the male will be the sperm, and in the female will be the egg or the oocyte to form the zygote. In this system, referring to the female reproductive system, it takes place in the oviduct. Now we are going to add the hypothalamus and the pituitary gland to talk about its. Now I will add the hypothalamus and the pituitary gland to this model. Here you can see how the hypothalamus is next to the pituitary gland, and they take a real important part in the ovarian cycle. What is the ovarian cycle? Well, this process is divided in three parts. The first part is the follicular phase. The follicular phase starts when the FSH is released by the pituitary gland, stimulating the development of a follicle in one of the ovaries. As the follicle matures, oogenesis is initiated and continues until the epithelial cells secrete estrogen. This action stops the secretion of FSH. Now the ovulation. As the estrogen spikes, now that we have the mature follies, the secretion of a substance called GnRH from the hypothalamus, which turns causes a surge in LH, as we can see here in the graph, from the pituitary gland, resulting in ovulation. In this phase, the secondary oocyte will be released from the follicle into the oviduct. To finish the ovarian cycle, we have the luteal phase. In this phase, the LH promotes the development of a follicle cells that end being secreted as female hormones, mainly progesterone. To finish this cycle, we have the luteal phase. As we can see here in the graph, here we have a representation of how LH promotes the development of the corpus luteum, that is the development of follicle cells that end in the last phase. This will end in female hormones that it will be mainly be progesterone, and all this process will pass to the uterine cycle. Now all the process of the ovarian cycle will pass to the uterine to start another cycle, the uterine cycle. First we have menstruation. Here we can see it represented on the graph. It has a time of 1 until 5 days approximately. In this phase, the female hormones estrogen and progesterone produced by the ovaries during the ovarian cycle affect the endometrium. This phase consists of the breakdown of the endometrium with blood passing out of the vagina. This phase is caused by the low sex hormones. Now the proliferative phase. This phase is represented between the 6 and 13 days of the uterine cycle. This phase consists of the build-up of the endometrium caused by the increased production of the estrogen. Here we can see it. Here, by the new developing follicle. Now we have the secretory phase. This phase consists of the endometrium doubling or tripling its thickness and the production of mucus secretion. The endometrium is prepared to receive a developing embryo, but if the fertilization and implantation doesn't occur, the endometrium will degenerate and this will lead to another menstruation. Here we can see the secretory phase. It is between the 15 and 20 another menstruation if the implantation and fertilization doesn't occur. This means having a baby. Here we can see an ironic representation of what females suffer each month. Here we can see a person, well, a female eventually, laying on the floor crying because of the pain that they suffer thanks to the changes in the hormones levels during all this process that we saw in these two graphs. Here you can see the blood representing the menstruation and all the uterine cycle, and this is just a little example of how to represent it in an ironic way. Now I will explain you some different methods of birth control and how they work to prevent pregnancy. First we have the surgical sterilization. In females, sterilization is done by a tubal ligation, here we can see it, in which both oviducts are tied off and then cut, resulting in a secondary oocyte unable to pass through the oviducts and the sperm can reach the oocyte. This means that the endometrium will never have an embryo. This method has an advantage is that you will never get pregnant, but the disadvantage is that you can get STDs if you are not using a condom or other anticonceptive method. Now we will pass to the oral contraceptives or birth control pills. These pills contain various mixtures of estrogens and progestins, and they prevent pregnancy mainly by negative feedback of inhibition of FSH and LH, as we saw it right here. The low levels of these two hormones prevent the development of a follicle and estrogen doesn't rise. Which means that in this graph it will not happen this action. The estrogen will stay in a parallel way. And the surge of LH doesn't happen and ovulation is not triggered when taken properly. Now the intrauterine device, or the IUD, is a small object made of plastic, copper, or stainless steel that is inserted into the uterus by a physician. This device causes changes in the endometrium and prevents the implantation of a fertilized egg. Some women cannot use this device because of this, but the disadvantage is that you can get STDs if you are not using a condom or other anticonceptive method. Now we will pass to the oral contraceptives or birth control pills. These pills contain various mixtures of estrogens and progestins, and they prevent pregnancy mainly by negative feedback of inhibition of FSH and LH, as we saw it right here. The low levels of these two hormones prevent the development of a follicle and estrogen doesn't rise. This, which means that in this graph it will not happen this action. The estrogen will stay in a parallel way. And the surge of LH doesn't happen and ovulation is not triggered. When taken properly, now the intrauterine device, or the IUD, is a small object made of plastic, copper, or stainless steel that is inserted into the uterus by a physician. This device causes changes in the endometrium and prevents the implantation of a fertilized egg. Some women cannot use this device because of discomfort, expulsion, or bleeding. This device doesn't prevent you from STDs, but it is 100% effective of not getting pregnant. To finish this video, we have two other anti-conceptive methods. We have the female condom. Here we can see at the picture how when you use it, how it is inside the female. Here we can see the uterus, the vagina, the cervix, and how it protects all the vagina. This method is prevent you from, in a 95% approximate of STDs, but it will be the percentage for getting pregnant, it will be higher. The diaphragm is, as you can see, you can think that it is really secure, but this device can, if the penis apply too much force, can move and the sperm can pass through the vagina until the egg. That is why not many women use it, but it will be secure for an emergency situation.